And welcome to the 2018. It's the celebration of the life and the work of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and thousands of others who worked along with him. First of all, I want to thank the King Celebration Committee for their unrelenting commitment to making these events possible. Without their dedication to honoring Dr. King, we would actually lose the opportunity to come together as a community, to learn, to grow, to enjoy the many programs offered over the next 2 weeks and beyond. So give them the love. I also want to thank the individual units on campus. Actually, it was kicked off by an academic unit and then followed up by Geisel. It actually started on Thursday. But we want to thank them for the programs they have presented already and the programs that they will be presenting over the coming 2 weeks. Those kinds of programs add a richness, an incredible richness to the experience that we all appreciate. So let's show them the love as well. Now I get to current issues, so the love ends. Not really. But what I want to do is just before I introduce our speakers, just set the stage for why we are here. Just set the stage for why we're here. We're privileged to be alive. And we're here to witness yet another year in which we get to come together and celebrate the life and the legacy of Dr. King. Every year that we come together for this celebration, I always leave, and when I'm leaving, I whisper a prayer. I always pray that the year that follows will be better for our campus, better for our community, and be better for the world. I would be less than honest if I suggested to you that last year's prayer was answered. What I can state without doubt, however, is that I am still full of hope. I am focused on social justice for all people. I'm committed to creating change, and I still hold on to a raw determination that I will be a part of that change, even here at dear old Dartmouth. The past year has presented many challenges for those of us who work in the area of diversity, inclusivity, and social justice. We have watched doors close to opportunities for education, for employment, for healthcare, economic development, for poor communities all over this country. We have watched small towns turn into ghost towns as jobs for blue-collar workers continue to disappear, and the opportunities for college education move far beyond the financial capabilities of many Americans. Poor and rural secondary schools have less support than ever. Small community hospitals are closing. I recently visited a small, mostly Black and African American town in Eutaw, Alabama, and I viewed what used to be vibrant, healthy streets. They are now turned into ghost-like alleyways, and they're snaking through that dead community. The life has been sucked out of their homes, out of their schools, their churches, and it was sucked out when opportunity and hope left. We come together at Dartmouth and at places all over the world to recommit ourselves to helping breathe life back into dying poor communities. But to do so, we must demand opportunities for poor and marginalized groups all over the 50 states, including Puerto Rico. We must make excellent education a priority for all children and not just the financially secure. We must create opportunities for employment here in this country, and we can do so without becoming isolationists who build walls to keep our neighbors out. We must commit to protecting our planet from violence that we commit against our land, our water, our air. And those protections must extend beyond the gated communities of Florida, Arizona, California, Georgia, Massachusetts, and the list goes on. Flint, Michigan, and Lowndes County, Alabama would be great places to start just in case our federal agencies need some good ideas. While we are engaging in this social justice work, we must set free thousands and thousands of people of color imprisoned for petty crimes, or we can't do that at the very least. Let's create opportunities for wealthy white-collar criminals to join their peers in public and privately owned steel cages all over America the Beautiful. Equal opportunity. This is the work we all must do, and there is no better time than now. And to get us started, I will introduce our wonderful student speaker. Her name is Maya Perkins. She is a second-year student here at Dartmouth, where she is pursuing a double major in government and sociology. She's passionate about advocacy, social justice, and creating spaces and fostering access for underrepresented students of color. As a result, she, along with her sister, created a nonprofit organization to increase access to educational resources for students that, over time, have been excluded. Maya was fortunate to have the support and the resources that afforded her the opportunity to attend Phillips Exeter Academy for high school, which then positioned her to apply and eventually attend Dartmouth College. On campus, she is fully engaged in various activities, some including serving as the undergraduate advisor for the Shabazz Center, being a member of the Leadership Council for the Dartmouth women's rugby team, and I think I saw some rugby shirts, but I could be wrong, participating as a music director for Music in Color, and acting as the current president of the Afro-American Society. And all of these roles, she seeks to lead with love and care. Please, let's welcome Maya.
They say that freedom is a constant struggle. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. They say that freedom is a constant struggle. We've struggled so long, we must be free. Said we struggle so long, we must be free. We've struggled so long, we must be free. But are we? I begin my remarks with this excerpt from a song because it truly encapsulates the experience of oppressed communities globally. It captures both the sad and the promising nature of continued struggle. Sad in that it confirms the reality that our experience has been primarily rooted in oppression, hardship, and pain, and that although we continue to struggle, there is always more work that needs to be done. Promising in the sense that although we've endured and overcome so much, we continue to fight. The fact that there are people who dream of an equitable society and have dedicated their lives to trying to change the world is inspiring and encouraging. As one of my favorite artists, J. Cole, once said in a song, there's beauty in the struggle. As history has shown, seemingly indestructible forces are easily broken with the will to do so. This will to resist and to overcome is embedded in these lyrics and is critical to our fight for justice and equality. But struggle and resistance in isolation is futile. In order to be successful in these efforts to gain freedom, justice, and equality for all, We need to globalize the way we think about the issues we face. Collective action is crucial, especially in a time where capitalism and neoliberalism encourage people to narrowly view themselves as individuals rather than sharing in a collective identity. We must reorient ourselves in a context of collective struggle and adopt a framework that allows us to collectively think of these issues and organize around these issues together. Dr. King once said, "We're caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects us all indirectly." As such, we need to focus on building links with other struggles that are separate from our own individual struggles. This requires us to reach across borders, be it psychological in the way that we think about other struggles in relation to our own, social in terms of how we self-identify, or geographic in terms of national borders and boundaries. This might seem like an impossible, unattainable goal, but in reality, it's not. It simply requires the will and the desire to do so. Because just as communities and borders are imagined, they can be reimagined. Reimagined and recreated in a way that is more inclusive and allows for the creation of a unified identity based on our shared struggle and shared sense of humanity. We have the power to determine our reality. We have the agency to collectively envision and fight for a world we desire. But we have to consciously decide to do that. In doing so, we must acknowledge the complexities and differences within various groups, and as a result, create more permeable group borders. We must also recognize the interrelated and interconnectedness between all communities, oppressed, marginalized, or others, because we all have a stake in freedom. In doing so, we must build connections between these groups and communities based on a common experience, oppression, and a common goal, liberation and freedom. I'm not saying this will be easy, but it's necessary. And as I stated at the beginning of my remarks, freedom is a constant struggle, and we must collectively take up this struggle so that we can all be free. Thank you.
Maya and students and people like Maya, reason I never give up hope. Thank you. Now I want to take the opportunity to introduce our featured speaker for this evening. Our featured speaker is Kalani Souza. Kalani is a gifted storyteller. He's a singer, a songwriter, musician, a film director, producer, poet, philosopher, priest. He's a political sectarist, a peacemaker. He's a facilitator, mediator. I am not making all of this up, he is. He's an educator. And I've only spent a little time with him face to face. Otherwise, I've just been following him through electronic devices. But in the time that I've spent with him, I can also tell you he's my friend and he's very human. A Hawaiian practitioner, he's a cross-cultural facilitator. He has experience in promoting social justice through conflict resolution. His workshops and his lectures, they inspire, they challenge us, they entertain us. Kalani is a recognized traditional practitioner of Native Hawaiian and Pacific Island culture, and he's licensed to practice traditional religious ceremonies. He works in the community and with local scientists and researchers from the University of Hawaii, as well as other educational institutions and alliances, including the National Center for Atmospheric Research, the University Corporation for Atmospheric Research, and that's going to keep coming up all night, and the National Domestic Preparedness Consortium. Kalani currently serves as a cultural advisor to the Department of Commerce's National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration's Pacific Services Center in Hawaii. As a board member of the Ala Kahaikai Tribe Association in Kauai, serving the National Park Service, and the National and Historic Trails, and as Community Outreach Specialist at the University of Hawaii National Disaster Preparedness Training Center. He is the founding executive director of Olahana, did I do that right? Yes, ma'am. A nonprofit operating as the Olahana Foundation that works with coastal and indigenous communities to build capacities around food, energy, water, and knowledge systems. Please welcome my new friend, Kalani.
Akakamano yo. O no na metahala me kalehua. Eye halelehua. No ya na kanoe. Eye kauno ia. Ealo inei. Eali anei. Iho io kaiki mai. Hiki mai no ko. Hiki pu no me ke aloha. Aloha ie. Aloha ie. Aloha ie. Thank you for letting us begin with protocol. That song is about 1,200 years old. I know the family that wrote that song. My first hula teacher was a woman whose family wrote that song, and she taught that song to me. That's the same song Captain Cook heard when he came to the beaches. I sing that song to you now. It's a song of welcome. You know, they say he came in peace, and he left in pieces. Things change. They always do. So I want to begin, first of all, by stating some disclaimers, generalizations. Boy, am I going to make them. And generalizations, they're not quite right, but that's okay. My grandfather, he would say, if it doesn't begin right, how's it going to end right? Right? So we start with the protocol. And we started with the poo, played by Kalani, who is really a gift to see him here in his senior year. Really quite the gift. And Alex and Sarah were chanting us in. And they just got married, by the way. And the two of them have been traveling with me, thankfully, and helping me to get through this and the technology. If you could set that window up for me, that'd be wonderful. And they've been staying with me for about 2.5, 3 years, ever since I got sick. So the short end of the story, because I don't want to spend a lot of time with it, right? 2015, the guys at Cedars give me 2% chance of surviving. And he says to me, he says, tell me what you got to live for. And I said, we're sitting in this little ICU unit. You know, I'm looking out the little glass window of the door out into the waiting room, and there's my wife. You know, she's talking to the nurse. I said, hey, doc, you see that blonde out there? He says, yeah. I said, man, I've been sleeping with her for the last 20 years. I intend on having as much sex with her for the next 20 years. And he says, that's about the best reason I've heard for staying alive. Right? And I say, well, you know, it's primal, right? It's that primal response, that willingness to. My first thought was, oh man, I'm not leaving my wife. Are you kidding me? This is just beginning to get good. You know what I mean? So it's 2 years later, they got no idea why I am still around. Apparently, I have no nerve response and zero reflex response and shouldn't be walking around. I should be laying still in a coma, but man, we got shit to do. You know, it's not like we ain't busy. You know what I'm talking about? So, if you don't mind, my grandfather also said this really interesting thing. He said, wisdom is a thing that can be learned, but it can't be taught. You following me? Cannot be taught. Choice is up to you. Yeah? So, let's start with a pule. My grandfather would say you begin with a prayer. A pu is that shell that brother was blowing. Just in Tahitian Polynesian means to make a sound. The Peruvians call it a pu tutu. Isn't that interesting? You know, so lei is a contraction of the word lele. It means to fly into space. So to make a sound and fly into space, that's pule. That's to do a prayer. That's about as important as it gets. My grandfather would say it's only a way of centering the mind, the body, and the spirit before beginning to do something. So it's like setting intentionality. So if you don't mind, I'd like to do that now. Ayo? Sure. E koma koe maku I loko kalani. Na mahalo pia na koe. Na mahalo nui na koe. God bless everybody in this room. Keep you safe. Return you safe to your loved ones. Be kind to one another. Mahalo yoi. Thank you. So, let's get to the business at hand, shall we? I'm the Reverend Kalani Souza. That's me. This is Alex Mefford. And Sarah Perkins, who's the brains of our operation. Back there, Sarah, give him a wave. And I mean this in all seriousness. Sarah is one of the operational directors of the Olahana Foundation. She's kind of our boss. We're like the meat. We walk around behind her and go blah, blah, blah. You know, and she makes sure that we get everything done. So, I have a feeling about this evening. I've been thinking about it for a few months now. And don't get me wrong, it's not a thought either. You know what I mean? It's a feeling of a feeling. Not that thinking is not important, okay? As evidenced by administration, thinking is hugely important. But feeling feels more meaningful. You know what I mean? So, I got a feeling relationships matter. And this feeling came to me when I was pondering this stuff, borders, you know, and I thought to myself, be orders, beyond the orders, bored with orders, I'm tired of orders, you know what I mean? It's like I want collaborations, you know, some co-learning, a little co-production, maybe something that has meaning. And I get other feelings too. I get mixed feelings. You know, like when I see Charlottesville or the water cannons in Dakota land, or You hear the chants, Black Lives Matter. And I'm not really sure how I feel about a border wall. You know, outraged, incensed maybe, incredulous, unsurprised by the bigotry, the racism, the stupidity. You know, for feeling this way, I'm gonna come under attack. I'm the unreasonable bleeding heart. I'm unwilling to engage in a serious conversation about our country's future. You know, I mean, about a revisionist history that's destined to make America late again. You know, late to the vision that was held by Jefferson and Adams and clearly addressed by Lincoln, loved by both Kennedy brothers, and dreamed of by the man we honor here today, the good Reverend Martin Luther King. And then we know him in the Pacific. I remember seeing him when he came on the first trip in '66. You know, that was something. We were doing our own fights out there. And he became aware of them and came out and kind of joined with the struggle and made a huge difference for us. Just after statehood, when there was a struggle with who was going to be in power, the old sugar barons or the people who had walked up to the ballot. This is an important time in that early stage of those developments. So we thank him for his life of service, you know, a life willing to be lived in the service of others, you know, in the service of all. The way I see it is he's given it back in full measure, right? He's given voice to what was important, but he accomplished what was meaningful. So anyway, back to borders. So these boundaries that define us, our families, our villages, our tribes that lead to nations and empires with laws and structures that surround our thinking, and these borders of values, these boundaries of private ownership, they're more flexible than you think. They appear to have a rigidity of purpose and authority. And yet, when it's opportune, they become pliable and they kind of serve the dominant narrative. In the case of Hawaii, the first non-white monarchy to be accepted into the European family of nations, the first city with electric generation, a nation with above 92% literacy rate, health care for the citizens, a democratically elected king and queens, a nation whose constitution guaranteed that all land would be held in perpetuity for all time for the people. This is the nation that was overthrown and occupied by American businessmen and the US military, primarily interested in acquiring land. Following the illegal occupation in the 1890s, the US created the Hawaiian Homestead Act, in effect, a Kanaka Maoli reservation, which brings me to my first story. So I'm coming home from Waikiki Beach. It's like 2:30 in the morning. And it's not like I was out drinking all night, but I was out drinking all night. Yeah. So I'm sneaking into the house. It's like 2:30 in the morning. And there's my mom. You know, she's like this 74-year-old lady. It's a couple years ago. And she's sitting on the table nursing this glass of Crown Royal, right? And I'm, Mom. She waves this piece of paper at me. It's from the Hawaiian Homes Department, you know. My mom's been on the Hawaiian Homeland's roll since 1963. She's now 84. She's gonna die in a couple years. I'm gonna miss her, you know, but she ain't gonna get no homeland. That's the way they play it out. So me, I go out into the garage and I write her this song. It's my mom. Always take your mom with you. Yes.
for more. We're waiting. That's what hospitality is for waiting, for waiting. We're waiting here with open doors. Sugar carts from across the sea invading. Heaven help us, missionaries pontificating. A piece of paper took my heart from me. I'm waiting, I'm waiting. They say it's the land of the free. I'm still waiting. I've been waiting for a change to come. It seems I got a long way to go. I've been thinking this'll all work out, but I really, really don't know. Go ahead, build that interstate. Traffic's waiting, traffic's waiting, traffic's waiting. Mother Nature's gonna have to wait. So degrading, she's waiting. We're all victims of a twisted fate. Let's not give in to the hate. Keep on waiting. I've been waiting for a change to come. It seems I got a long way to go. I've been thinking this'll all work out, but I really, really don't know. Someday soon we all will be waiting. We'll be waiting. We'll be waiting. We'll be waiting. Our homes, our families, waiting, waiting. Where are we going? It's so unclear. We're waiting. We're waiting. As for me, you're finally here. I'm still waiting. I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting. I keep waiting. Keep on waiting. Yeah, keep on waiting. Keep on waiting.
That's her last year, you know. She's still drinking bourbon. It's my mom. She's born the day after me. Not too many people get to say that. My mom was born on May 15th. It was a Tuesday. May 13th was Mother's Day. And I was born on May 14th. So she spoiled me rotten from the first moment. Glad of it. It's my mom. Her father was my grandfather, Kalani Souza, from Keynote, old Hawaiian man. So my grandfather used to say to me, it's always the same. It's always changing. That, you know, same old thing over and over again, always changing. So it makes it the same. It's always changing. Case in point is William McKinley and his administration. At the time, the US Congress, with the Hawaii thing, they considered it illegal, unconstitutional. President Harding issues a letter of apology. President Clinton issued another letter of apology. In the UN and the World Court, They both recognize that the Hawaiian kingdom still exists. I would like to demonstrate the flexibility of the legal domain. One can sum up the problem with Hawaii like this. So, you steal my car. I catch you stealing my car. Oh man, you're sorry you stole my car. You give me a letter of apology saying you steal my car. And now here's the tricky part. I've discovered you're keeping the car. When has that ever happened? But it's going on today. So here's something else I've discovered. I've discovered the doctrine of discovery seems to be a little bit flawed. Fundamentally flawed. Saying Christopher Columbus discovered America is like saying Captain Cook discovered Hawaii. Apparently both lands were uninhabited, and both fallacious claims proffered by a dominant narrative for commerce and for political advantage. The papal bulls, the doctrine of discovery, and other erroneous assumptions about religious and genetic superiority are the basis for continued land court decisions today. What's up with that? These are not small or trivial differences. Nah, these are huge cosmological differences in the way the indigenous world shares our relationships and the way the world of modernity profits with enormous consequence. Allow me to generalize and wax redundantly. So one culture feels the world connected, interrelated, overlapping, continuously influencing. The other sees the world more finite, sort of defined borders, more structure. One sees the world in a medicine wheel, the spherical, the circular. The other is marching ever onward, sort of lineal historical line with King of the Hill as the ultimate goal, as opposed to the intergenerational transfer of that wealth, which is the knowledge systems, those ways of being, those ways of feeling. So the dichotomy has been evident for millennia. There have been adjustments, to be sure, the fall of the Sumerians, the Babylonians, the end of the Roman Empire, the French Revolution, the Civil War, blah, 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 blah. Once again upon us, like this great kind of shadow in the Pacific. You guys saw that nuclear test that went bad? Right. Again, farmlands and fields stripped like the Dust Bowl again. Thought these efforts were addressed through our grandparents through the 60s, 70s. And we hit the 80s. What do we do? Trickle-down mentality, trickle-down bottom line, our new planning tool. The problem is the N is silent. It's a triple bottom lie. The environment is really regarded as resource, production potential. The social is really regarded as labor, production capacity. It's still just about the money, boo. That's all it's ever been. So I woke up from a dream the other day and I had this idea really clearly in my mind, DOR. So I sat down with a cup of tea, I meditated in my moon circle, and this is what came to me. The doctrine of discovery is just a small part of the greater truth. The doctrine of relationship, like the fourth leg of a stool, like the missing support for the triple bottom line, a relational doctrine. So the doctrine of relationship, this larger truth into which the doctrine of discovery serves as only part of the healing wheel. In the metaphor of the indigenous medicine wheel, the position of the north represents the ancestors, the past, the doctrine of discovery. Equal and in opposition to it is the doctrine of recognition, of protocol in the south, of the youth, the present society, the way of man. In the east would reside the doctrine of creation, connection, connectivity, the feminine, life-bringing, the way of the verdant world. In the west, we find the doctrine of separation, of the intergenerational transfer of knowledge, the masculine, life-ending, the way of the spirit world. These doctrines they're no less valid. And they're all but ignored by the legal world, building its decision for maritime land base and international court decisions on an archaic, obsolete, papal bull. Bottom line is, we're still relating to each other based on a 600-year-old document, erroneously proffered by religious fanatics with a political agenda. Is it me? Maybe it's time for us to take a beat. Maybe we should pause for a minute, consider what is really meaningful. These days, if you just wait 60 seconds, 1 minute, it all changes.
It just happens that way. And that really we aren't justified in our actions so much as we are in the way we are. Not what we're doing, but who we are when we do it is really the thing that defines. And most of us find it so easy to give in to a little bit of pressure. A lot of us are so much better when there's a lot of pressure. When there's a lot of pressure, somehow you stand up, you get that gumption, it's like a big threat is somehow easier to stand up to than a little threat. Especially the ones that just kind of like creep in and you don't even know where they come from and suddenly they're there, and you're responding to. So I was in Okinawa with Julie, who's the best part of me. And this song was given to me by the moon, which I thought was really interesting. You probably understand what I mean. Just because, wait a minute. Just because Bill O'Reilly smiles, that don't make him your friend. When the lies with the politics, we've been outfoxed again. Government in crisis, financial disaster. Both the slaves and the masters can't win. Just because, oh, we won't heed the warnings. And the climate of change is getting hard to deny. Turn from the destruction, the desert, the storm, and it's a prayer to keep us from the harm. Wait a minute, is that the moon up in the sky? Don't the stars come out whenever the evening arrives? And the sun shines softly in the morning light. There are things that we can count on in our lives. Just because. Wait a minute. Just because. Oh, they left you for another. That's a just cause to move on with your life. Everybody got their own personal drama, and you learn to live with the pain and strife. Just because, oh, our hearts can be broken when we vote for heroes and they sign off on lies. Just when you think the whole thing is over, you discover you can keep hope alive. Wait a minute, is that the wind through the trees? Are the clouds rolling by on a soft breeze? Are the bees still buzzing in healthy hives? There are things that we should never sacrifice. a minute, is that the ocean I smell? And my heart moves to the rhythm of a big blue swell. From the top of the atmosphere to the deep I dive. And I know that our children will survive. There are things we can count on in our lives. Wait a minute. Just because.
Don't get all anxious about how it's going bad. It always seems like it's going bad, but it's about relationships. I just get that feeling, you know. And it's not an airy-fairy feeling either. It's not void of science or rigor. For example, Newton's law of motion, gravity, relationship. Einstein's theory of relativity, relationship. Heisenberg's anomaly, you guessed it, relationship. So Albert Einstein used to say, fail big. I'm uncertain about you, but I'll tell you how it goes for me. I fail about 90% of the time. It takes me about a half a dozen to like 10 times to get something right. So I know failure is going to happen, right? So the lessons are in the failure. When we focus on goals instead of the relationship, and we fail, and that's inevitable, we retreat to our neutral corners and we start pointing fingers at each other. But if you set it up so you start with the relationship and then you fail, you just dust yourself off because you trust in the relationship and you go at it again. And guess what? On about a half a dozen or the 10th time, you get to your goal. You know how most of us are? I'll tell you how most of us are. Most of us lose the relationship clinging to the goal. We feel this loss of relationship. It's echoed by Last Child Into the Wood, by the Coastal Be Wet, by the STEM programs, by the STEAM programs, accenting arts and culture. We feel a need, a kind of yearning for this kind of learning, for this other kind of education, this deeper learning. It's at the heart of scientific investigation. Inquiry, it seems, is deeply personal. At some point, it's a personal decision, answering deeply personal questions about impacts and realities in one of these four directions. What is my relationship to the cosmos, my larger belief system that impacts my every movement, each judgment, all my deeply held beliefs? What's my relationship to the environment, to the natural world, to the animal world, to the world that supports and feeds me and surrounds me? What's my relationship, and here's the tricky one, to people, to other people, to society, defining myself in the village? Who the hell am I? Perhaps the most critical is, what is my relationship to the self? This experience, it's deeply personal. It's transformative. Traditionally possible through an initiatory experience, but one provided by cultures and tribes and families. But this day, in the world of modernity, the experience tends to be incidental or accidental. Mostly it looks like binge drinking on campus. You know what I'm saying? Transformation can be tricky. Takes a few passes to get it right. And the border between the material and the spiritual is, that's it, right? This is where we traditionally run into trouble. The spiritual, the faith-based, the metaphysical, the bullshit. I think we talked one border too far. Thank you, sister. But me, I say not so. On the one hand, Western science, academia, or otherwise, is born out of deep desire to understand relation to each other, the environment, the cosmos. On the other hand, it does its damnedest to draw a border between itself and the spiritual. And for some legitimate reasons. But we must recognize the limitations and the consequences of this artificially sterile approach to life and to understanding the world. In this vacuum, in this absence of relationship, science has, in many cases, become complicit with the doctrine of discovery, extracting information that it discovered from communities in order to further the gains of the people and the institutions it serves, sometimes at the expense of the communities who really deserve the credit for the science. But there's a better way. It's a way that draws in the best of both scientific and spiritual, sterile and relational. There's a Jung, a Galen, a Masters and Johnson for every Newton and Hubble, Pasteur or Curie. A soft social science for every hard physical science. A relational for every structural. So, relationship is everything. These two guys came to me as students years ago. Just passing by, want to learn wilderness, blah, blah, blah. Alex is a wonderful community builder out in Germany. Sarah's from Mauritius out in the Indian Ocean by way of Massachusetts. Her mom was from the States, so she came here and grew up the rest of the time here. I found her out in Mass. I told her, you're coming to Hawaii with me. She said, you're crazy. So how long you been living out there now?
2.5 years.
Okay, so you see, that's how we roll. You cannot fake community. I've seen it done a lot, but it can't really be done. We have to do this thing not as institutions, but as family. That's the only way it's going to work. Yo. So, once we were using traditional methodologies, we were planting by the moon calendar, and I demonstrated the design, you know. Later on, my students were lamenting about how they didn't grow as many plants. I was doing about 300% more food than they were generating out of their agroforests. And we covered all the stuff. You sure you did everything? I checked the soils. I'm telling you, the wind direction. Oh, right. I said, so did you begin with the pule? And that's where it all starts, right? It didn't seem quantifiable. Didn't seem like it was scientific. I couldn't remember the words. You know, it's like all this stuff started rolling out. It's like, So the only thing between yours and mine is the fact that I started with the prayer. And then you're asking me why I'm getting 300% more than you. And I'm telling you why, but you're saying that's not quantifiable. Okay. So, offering that protocol, it demonstrates respect and humility and a desire for harmony with the other life that surrounds us. That's all. It ain't gonna hurt. Takes about 30 seconds. All you gotta do is acknowledge the other life around you. You know what I mean? And it all blossoms. It's called a resonant harmonic. Those of you who want to back up to either physics or music department. So anyway, thank you guys. Pray for the rain. Pray for the early snow. Pray there's a God up in heaven, a fallen angel below. Pray for the world less travel. Unravel the things you know. Pray for the working class hero. Pray for the water, for the healing spring. Pray for the wind through the treetops when the forest sings. Pray for the The crying babies, what a crying shame. Some of us will never pass this way again. Pray every step I take will lead me home. Pray the mistakes I make ain't set in stone. Pray for everyone I have ever known. Pray for me. Well, pray for hope. Pray for the endless dream. Pray for an end to the violence and the misery. Pray every runaway baby got a getaway bed. Pray for the naughty pictures in my head. Pray for the passion, the poison, the lost and found. Pray for the prisons, the corporations, the breaking down. Pray for the, what the hell are we waiting for? The end is coming soon. Pray for the sun, the earth, the moon. Pray every step I take will always take me home. Pray the mistakes I make ain't set in stone. Pray for everyone you have ever known. Pray for me. Well, pray for you and me, and pray every living consciousness is breathing free. Pray for the life around us, the mystery. Pray for all that we might be. Pray every step I take ain't set in stone. Pray the mistakes I make will always take me home. Pray for everyone you have ever known. Pray for me. Won't you? Pray for me. Yeah, so how does all this talk of relationship turn to action? I mean, the old people, they have this saying, if you want to talk about something, you get all the men together. Yeah, exactly. If you want to get something done. So anyway, we created a community 501c3, capacity building nonprofit. And we turned it over to a bunch of girls like Sarah and Kalia and all the rest of them. I'm the founding director. It means I stepped out because I get the intergenerational transfer of knowledge. We put them into private partnership with all of these folks and with the community and the immersion school and everything else. So we're working on sustainability centers, and we're now working with FEMA Region 9 out of Oakland to help create food security and capacity. I just took the chairmanship of the Indigenous Phonology Network because I got no common sense. It's not like I'm not in a wheelchair dying or anything, but you know, I'm in a wheelchair dying and shit. So anyway, it's entrenched in rural community, and I want to show you some of these efforts. Sarah is all headed up by a team of young folks we trust explicitly.
Homegrown Food Security and the Homegrown Food Security Project introduces Victory Gardens, virtually interconnected community tree gardens. Emergency food for a family of 4 for 4 to 6 days in the event of a natural disaster. This is an expert-guided, a DIY, web-based, internet community-supported, self-learning experience. Shelter in place, food in place, with your Victory Garden.
An example.
My name is Cliff Naiole. No Maui Maiko Hanapaliku Waihe'e. Raised on this island of Maui near the cliffs of Waihe'e. The great huli will come to these islands And like the fingers, he says, the most important people on this earth will be the fisherman, the farmer, the hunter, the gatherer, and the medicine man. And he says, you look at the lima, all these fingers work together. If you put the lima down this way, you can always dig a hole, you can canoe your seed, cover them up, you can pull out the crop. The only time you turn your hand this way is to give to your family. So with that in mind, we're just waiting for the great huli to come. And it's very important, I believe, that we give our people, not just the white people, but the people of Hawaii, a fair shake in having some type of self-sustenance in their yards, in their communities. And if you define the word community, you know what it's all about. It's their community associations. But to be able to have a plot of land where you can depend upon yourself to grow these things, so that when the great huli comes, at least we'll be prepared in a short sense and have that ability to depend upon each other. Food sovereignty for our people. Grow what the DNA of the land accepts. Not what we forced on its throat. I think that's crucial. All these things come under food. All these things come under food land. It comes all of this aina, that which feeds us. So for those who have the opportunity to grow, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer situation. So hopefully politicians, if you're out there listening, give us a chance to be self-sustainable. And it takes the pressure off of you, because when the great huli comes, you're responsible for all people. Let some of our people be responsible for themselves, at least to get ourselves off the ground and be self-sustainable.
My boy Cliff, we're all doing a lot of work. What does it all mean? I mean, politics, leadership, corporatocracy, oligarchy, the right to self-determination, the right to happiness, the alt-right. I mean, yeah. Does that include the right to be wrong? Racism, elitism, classism, all the isms? Let me take this opportunity to boil it down, because I didn't come no 3,000 miles to be vague. So here's the way I learned it from my grandfather. He said there are only 3 questions you really need to ask. The first question is, are the children fed? It takes a lot to feed children. Feeding children requires infrastructure. First, you're assuming that coupling is going on, You ever tried to feed a child? Takes 100% attention. I mean, this is difficult business. You need shelter, you need resources. You cannot be on the defensive. You must be able to grow food, acquire food, stop and actually feed the children. Takes an awful lot of capacity. First question, are the children fed? Number 2, are the old people comfortable? And I didn't say getting by. I said, are they comfortable? Which means you're accounting and accommodating diminishing capacity. A society that can accommodate, provide, and nourish those that are less able is a society that values the contribution of wisdom. Number 3, and this is an important one, are the women unafraid? When the women in our societies feel secure, they tend to the first 2 questions. If the answer is to the negative, and the women are afraid, and I think you can go through social media and see what's up, then let me propose a 4th question. Is it possible that we are failing? If by your actions you are feeding a child, comforting someone, or protecting the mitochondrial of our civilization, then this is time well spent. And I want to thank you for spending time with us tonight. Thank you, Dartmouth. Thank you. Thank you to Native American Houseboat, rocking out there with the folks. And thank you, everybody, for coming and taking time to come and celebrate. This is really important. Allow me to leave you with this thought. The good Reverend Martin Luther King utilized the strategies of Mohandas Gandhi, strategies found in the global non-killing effort, strategies summed up so elegantly in the phrase, be the change. Make it personal. Remember, when I speak of women, I mean the feminine, regardless of how you personally identify. Polynesians, we got 7 genders. So, feed the children, care for the elderly, support the women, have a feeling. These are the relationships that matter. Thanks. You guys be safe. Guys, be safe. Don't everybody run off to the bar now. I'm just teasing. I would be breaking my way towards a Sazerac in about 30 seconds if I could. Well, thank you, Alex.
Now, I think my mic is working, so the folks in the back will tell me it is. I think it is. So we get to ask a couple of questions. I will start by asking 1 or 2 questions, and then we'll give you a chance to ask a couple of questions, and you will go back to wherever you need to be to get ready for classes tomorrow, practice, and everything else that you will do. But here's my first question.
Yes, ma'am.
As I observe how the history of this country has been rewritten over the decades, I'm seriously concerned that the true histories of our people, yours and mine, will be written out of the records. How do you suggest we prevent this?
Wow, you know, the curt, trite, and fabulous answer is we're an oral culture. Who cares about your written histories? You know, we've been around for almost, from my knowledge system, almost 12,000 years. Right? We got about 3,500 active with you guys. You know, and us, we only got about 1,500 active with you guys because we managed to hide a very far away corner of the world, just trying to avoid everybody. You know, but people are people and they all catch up. And we learn things from older generations and older societies. The UN, the Permanent Forum on Indigenous People, they understand plumbing the depths of this knowledge. Hey, listen, man, I went on my first exchange program up to Tennessee when I was 16, right? I turned 19, I bail up to RIT in upstate New York, and I lose my scholarship, drift down to the city, get into so much trouble you wouldn't believe me if I told you. End up down at University of Southern Mississippi, UTA, Arlington, Texas, up in northwestern Texas, then up to Chicago, then over to CSUN. I mean, come on. It all changes. The histories are interrelated. The United States of America is how old? How old?
Math majors?
Right. Exactly. But you understand my point, right? The Sumerians thought it would go on forever, right? The city of Ur was once the greatest port in the world. We cannot even find it today. We kind of know where it was. You know, we spend a lot of money and satellite time looking for it. Still can't find it. Life is transient. Aren't we better served to think about these large global contextualized issues as they relate to our single family dwellings? What can a mother do with her 14-year-old child tomorrow that makes a difference, you know what I mean, with these large issues of waste and energy and water, human rights, food security, the rights of Mother Nature? These questions have come on us. I think we've made the great change. You know how we were all growing up waiting for that change to come? I think we look at the struggle we see now. I think these guys are in reaction to the change in times. You know what I mean? We need to hold strong, hold true, believe in each other, have the relationships, have the commitment. What I worry about is I see this diminishing percentage of people with an unusual but easily understandable perspective from this 200-year historical ride that they've had, right? I see this small group getting more and more desperate. And as they collapse in numbers, we may see activities in the streets we haven't seen since, the 1850s. When the Justice Department begins challenging states' rights around large capital investments into industries that the federal government wants to control for money purposes, and states are saying, I'm sorry, I'm not going to give up $350 million worth of income per year. These are going to become real issues in your time. And I wish I was sticking around another 40 years to see this. I'm telling you, I really wish I was staying here. I just checking it out. I would hang. Trust me, I'm pretty good on the guitar when my hands are working. I'm not bad in the kitchen, We would get there. It is a struggle. It's a long struggle. We're all on the backs of people before us. This is a long road. For some of us, this has been going on for almost 2,000 years. For some of us, 800. For some, 5. For some, 3. For some, 2. But it's all going on. And it's a shared problem. We have a saying at home, there's only one canoe. Where does everybody think they're going? And this is evidenced every time I take a trip like this. Whenever I get on that plane to go home to Hawaii, it's crazy how all those people fight to get on that plane. It's like they're shoving it. Stand in line trying to get, I'm in group 2. No, I'm in group 2. It's like, okay, lady, I got you. You're in group 2. It's like, you know what? Weirdly, the plane lands at the same time for everybody. Weirdly. You know what I mean? So from the Hawaiian perspective, we're like, bro, chill. Could you just take a beat, relax a little bit, and let's come at this again. I'm suggesting, I hope not too flippantly, that this might be a moment for us to take a beat. You know what I mean? It's not as dismal as we think. You know what I mean? Look around. Watch the conversations at the edges, the tone. Fortify yourself. Knowledge systems. Community. Entrench yourself in community. Trust the women in your community. This is the way we do it back home. When things are good, the women are in charge. You know what I mean? The men mostly sit around and go like, blah, 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 blah. And the fish was this big. Did you bring him home? No, he got away. Yeah, sure, he got away. Right? It's like all of that goes on. When things become dicey, when there's a threat to the community, the men definitely step forward and take over the leadership. They know it's only going to last as long as the threat lasts. That's what the men are for. You know what I mean? It's what we do. We do it kind of too well sometimes. But we do that, and then in our culture, we know to step back. Grandma's in charge. In our culture, the way we grew up matrilineally, women decide when we're going to have sex. Doesn't matter what gender you are, the decision's always left up to the person with the vagina. That was a rule they made up about 3,000 years ago. That's because if you live on a little island, you can't be fighting over stuff like that. Can't be done. Right? If you did that, within about 25 years, there'd be nobody left. We know that too. We know that too. So we learn these practices through experience, through suffering. You know, I happen to be a punahele, so it's just one of those rare things of birth. You happen to be the oldest child, and your grandfather says, that one, I'll take that one. You know, it's kind of like a Walmart. They're like, you know, X amount of grandkids, and that one's coming with me. You know, and oh, okay. I think he did it because I was my mom's favorite. And my mom was like, look, he was born between Mother's Day and my birthday. This and my, what? What? You know, it's like, oh yeah, the baby's coming with me. That's how they do in our culture. The kupuna, the standing spring, the grandparents raised the mo'opuna. Mo'o is our word for lizards. So the crawling springs, you know, like those little babies, they crawl to the standing spring to kind of get nourished in the water. You know why? Because grandparents make way better parents than parents do. Period. You know what I'm saying? So in our culture, the parents, they're busy having a life. Grandma and grandpa enjoying raising the kid. You know why? Because they didn't have to raise the first one. The first one, they were out having a life while they still could. You know what I mean? While the knees were working and the back was working and it was going on. You know, and I step back and I go like, wow, kind of common sense social order, you know, the way they do it. There's no big argument. The grandparents don't go to old folks' homes. The kids don't go to daycare. They go to each other. You know what I mean? The community. Our school, and we started maybe, I don't know, 18, 20 years ago in like portable buildings and canvas tents and mud. The school tried at first to do this charter immersion, sort of like, let's bring in the best, the most willing students, and oh, allies, the best allies, you know, just we're there with you, peeps, we're there with you. It's like, yeah, come on down, you know, and they start teaching. Didn't work. 3 to 5 years, didn't work. Backed up a little bit, went into the community, found the people that actually knew the students and the children, were deeply connected through relationship, send them, get them educated and certified as teachers. Bring them back and make them the teacher. You know how nice lunch is when the auntie is running the lunch line? It's like the kids are actually behaving, you know, when the janitor is Uncle Melvin. You know, he's got that stick and best not be running in the hall. You know what I mean? All that stuff going on. But it's interesting. The relationship in the school is completely different. It feels like family. In this school, you have to learn the traditional protocols, right? Chant them. If the parents are late, they gotta chant it. The kids have to like chant their way into school. And if the parents are late, they're dicking around in the kitchen. You know, and the kids are late getting to school. The parents have to stand there in front of the school and chant for forgiveness so that their child can be returned to the community for the offense they've given to the teachers and to the community and the other children. See, it's that point you were making. We've all become these individuals, these, you know, strikingly gorgeous individuals, you know, reaching the mountaintops in our fashionable boots with our smart devices. You know, we're all left to our own devices. But in truth, the beauty of humanity is our natural ability to commune, you know, to communicate with each other and to be family, to share food. Weirdly, the feds will not pay for food. The federal government will pay for everything else in a meeting and this and that, except for food. They're never going to pay for food. From a cultural standpoint, we always begin with food. How is it with you guys? Did you always show up at home and like mom's in the kitchen or something's going on right at the family party? Doesn't it always pretty much end up around the kitchen or washing dishes, somebody's eating way too much or maybe smoking out back or some such? But food becomes a fundamental part of our communities. I just think it's worth mentioning that that's one of the things the federal government will absolutely not pay for.
Right, I'm going to anyone. This is your opportunity to ask a question. She's here. We probably want to use the mic. Your voice is quite soft.
If people are racist and sexist, why do they do it if they know deep down in their heart that they shouldn't?
Interestingly enough, you know, we pondered this in Hawaii because it's interesting. You know, Hawaii's made up of a lot of different. How many of you been to Hawaii? I mean, come on, you can face it up. How many of you only been to Waikiki and Honolulu in that business? Okay, good. Get back there or go to one of the other islands. Will you just pick any other island? They're all different. Just go to one other than Oahu. So, you know, what we think about race and race relationship is interesting because being Hawaiian is not an issue of race, right? It's an issue of nationality, of nation. Hawaii was made up of a bunch of people. We don't all agree with the beginning of the nation, but they struggled and did their thing. I think the embarrassment is the fact that it was such a vibrant democracy when the United States takes it apart. You know, for money, for missionaries, church, and greed. I mean, it's really sort of pathetic, but the truth is, it's still a kingdom. It's still moving towards acceptance. You see Alex from Germany, Sarah from Mauritius, both Hawaiians, both my family, living with me in my land. You know what I mean? Both dear to me greatly. I wouldn't be alive without them. You know what I mean? And they make the decision to come out and be with us. Hey, I think everybody in the world is Hawaiian. You guys just forgot about it. You know what I'm saying? All we say is just human beings have a right to express happiness, to express caring, compassion, commitment to each other. What we have as regards land and our families and even our governance is not rights. What we have is responsibilities. What we should be doing is thinking about what those responsibilities look like. When I say that, I want to add that we should responsibly be building the mechanisms for that intersection that we can all see that is just ahead. When that small percentage of very angry Americans finds themselves cornered with very little to do but to exercise their grief from the rest of us. Will we build the mechanisms for healing and acceptance? Shouldn't we be building them now? Since we can see the coming storm, yes? When we can see the coming storm, let's take down the sails, people. Let's strap down the deck. Let's get everybody watered and fed. Let's get ready for this one. Ayo? I'm counting on you. And I'm planning on us doing very well. Ayo? Nicely done. Mahalo. Thank you, sister.
Yep. And right out the door to my right, I have no sense of direction. It's either to my right or my left. There is food. So please join us, chat with each other. Remember that sense of community that we have talked about, community with your peers, with the folks in this area, the Upper Valley, and with each other. Thank you again for coming out, and please enjoy some food before you leave.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah and crew.